5, 4, 3, 2. Realtors, you're in the right spot.
We're going to do this together.
Welcome to the Leading Edge Podcast.
These mentors showed me a map of success.
This is the place for real estate pros like you to get better at running your business, balancing your life, and having happy clients.
Do you know how powerful you are?
And now your host, Eric Thompson.
Hey everyone, it's your good friend Eric Thompson. This is the Leading Edge Podcast, episode number 73. This one, guys, is going to be fun. You know why? Because we have a fun guest. It is the one and only Leigh Brown. Say hello, Leigh. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Eric. You know what? I didn't know I'm 73 because my lucky number is 37. And so now I'm extra excited to be on your show today.
Well, how cool is that? What an amazing coincidence. And everyone, guys, you're in for a treat. What I'll tell you, it's likely that you already know Leigh, you know of her, you've heard her speak, you have been impacted in some way by her already, but I'll tell you a little bit about Leigh. She is a realtor extraordinaire in Concord, North Carolina. She owns a company called One Community Real Estate. Right now, Leigh, you are the NAR VP for Advocacy. You are a trainer, you're a speaker. You are an influencer in this industry. The way I think about you, Leigh, is that you make us all better. Like you just
thank you.
And you push us and challenge us and make us think in new ways. And you're such a believer in the realtor brand. And I so love that and appreciate that about you. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for being on the podcast. Just means so much to me.
Well, I need to keep you in my pocket because those are very nice words to hear. And like many people who volunteer in the space, it's easy to serve this community. Realtors are leaders in so much that they do, whether it's volunteering in their community or in the schools or in their churches, or it's how they serve their clients. It's how they serve the private property rights work. I mean, I love who realtors are. And I wish that the rest of the world had a better understanding of the depth that we bring to every day.
Yeah, got it. And Leigh, yeah, it's so apparent how much you love this profession and how you push us all to be more professionals. And so we appreciate that. And so just for background, everyone listening, you may want to know how did this come together? Leigh and I were together at the NAR Region 11 conference in Denver, Colorado. For a lot of people, it was the first time being back together in person in a long, long time. We had, Leigh, about 300 people there. So much fun. You and I went for a run with another small group of realtors one of the mornings. That was a blast. You and I.
And let's just point out how many of them quit right after we started. I'm just going to lay it out there.
I know.
Friends. Where did y'all go?
Right. Lucky for them. We're not going to name names, but yeah, Leigh and I
we know.
finished. Totally. So Leigh was a speaker at that event, and Leigh, no surprise, you crushed it. Such a great presentation. One thing I remember from that presentation that I was going to ask you to talk about here, you made the point that I just love. You said, you know what? Real estate is messy. So talk about that. So talk about how and why it's messy and why it's important for us to realize that and understand that.
Well, think about the humans that we connect with. We tend to connect to people that have a story that looks like ours. And every one of us, our life has had something in it that's not gone right. There's been a hiccup. There's a great moment followed by a devastating moment. There's financial disaster. There's financial windfall. There's family arguments. There's love. There's death. I mean, life is messy. But then you look at real estate, and too often realtors put on this veneer. They want to tell people they're perfect. Hey, I sold 1,000 houses today. Woo, I'm #blessed. And they act like blessings come from sales and money, but actually blessings come from the connectivity that we get to experience in real estate. I wish they would use #blessed in a different way, but that's a different discussion. So I look at the steps that are involved in selling houses and buying houses. And I've been a realtor for 21 years, and I still produce a little bit, although primarily my time is spent as a broker and also as a trainer. Still do a few houses here and there because, as you know, it keeps you relevant with the changes in consumer behavior and in the market. And every time I sell a house, it doesn't matter how many thousands I've sold, that situation is different. there's an appraisal that doesn't go through, there's a lender that drops the ball, there's a fellow agent who's had their license for approximately 5 minutes, something out there is going to cause a haywire moment. And that's what realtors are so skilled at, is managing all of those moments, the messy moments. And that's why we're hired. It's what the public needs from us, because if everything were perfect and easy, which is how we advertise, they would never need a realtor. But the public needs a realtor because there is no way to ever gauge what situations you're going to encounter along the way. And I wish that as a profession, we did a better job of storytelling that if there's fungal growth in the crawl space, I got you. If there's a problem with the roof, I got you. If the house has orange shag carpet and we've got to solve for that, I got you. If we told people better that all of these things were going to occur and that we could guide them through it, it would be a game changer, because that also would humanize realtors. And a lot of realtors spend their whole waking day trying not to be human. They're trying to be like HGTV. But the number one reason a realtor is hired, the number one reason somebody hires a realtor out of the thousands and thousands of choices?
Tell us.
It's not knowledge. It's not competence. I wish it were, but it's not. The number one reason the public chooses the realtor they choose, likability. It's likability. And think back to your high school days. Did you like that perfect person? You did not. You did not like the perfectly perfect cheerleader and the perfectly perfect number one nerd. That would be me. Y'all didn't like me. I was a nerd. You didn't like the perfect jock. You might have admired what they were doing, but you didn't like them. Why didn't you like them? Because they weren't just like you. And so if you're a realtor who's watching this and listening to this, go look at your social feed and ask yourself how much of that tells the public what's in here, and how that's going to impact them. And then when they hit those messy moments, they know that you're with them. You're not in front of them, behind them. You're right there beside them where they need us to be.
Totally. So it's kind of like, let's stop kidding ourselves. Let's stop kidding the public that this is all about perfection and just like HGTV. No, it's messy because it turns out life is messy, and we're dealing with human beings and emotions and change and upheaval and all those things. And that oftentimes always creates a mess. And
and here's how I can tell you're a coach, because you accidentally said something. You were trying to say kidding, but it came out cheating. So you got to go backwards a second. And when he said you're kidding yourselves, if you instead heard you're cheating yourselves, that's what happens when you don't put forth the most genuine, authentic version of yourself. You're cheating yourself out of great connectivity and great relationships. And you're cheating your future clients out of the most likable realtor they'd ever find. And you're not likable because of anything except who you are and how you were uniquely created. So I think it's like that Colorado's Rockies game where you could hear something if you were told to hear it, but it wasn't what was said. So now y'all can go backwards and hear whether you heard kidding or cheating, but either one should give you a life lesson.
Right.
Good job, Eric.
Thank you. Good job pointing that out. I love it. Okay, so related to that, Leigh, let's talk about marketing. I know this is something you have some opinions on, so you're passionate about as you think about realtors marketing themselves. It's like, what do you see realtors doing right, and maybe what do you see that's maybe not so right or not so effective or not so good? If you could coach people on how to market and position themselves.
What they do right would be less than what they do wrong, because I spend most of my time looking for bad practices. Use it in presentations. I won't lie about that. But I will say that the pandemic has given realtors a gift. And one of the gifts that it's given to realtors is an embrace of video. Finally, we have been trying on the coaching and training side forever. For over a decade, literally, to get realtors to use video. They wouldn't use it, Eric. And their excuse was always, I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too ugly, I don't know what to say, I don't have the right equipment, I'm in a bad place. So many excuses. And so they would never embrace it, knowing that they're giving up the best marketing tool that they have. The consumers of today learn and educate themselves by video. Think about the last piece of anything that you bought, a piece of furniture at IKEA. You don't try to read those little sad, tired instructions. You go to YouTube and you look for that item and watch somebody put it together, and you play pause, play pause, play pause, play pause to do it. So realtors that have avoided video have missed the opportunity to convey what they know and also to connect, because video is a connective tool, much more so than email or text could ever be. Well, during the pandemic, depending on where people were on the fear spectrum, and I refer to people in COVID, you've got the ones over here on this end that still think we're all going to die, that we're going to walk outside in the streets with covered in bodies, and this is the end of the world. And on this end of the spectrum, you have the people who've said, there was never a COVID, and I don't believe any of this. Well, whenever you have a spectrum of beliefs, you have realtors that get pushed and pulled in the middle, because we serve people all over this spectrum. So why do I bring that up? Because to be that person who bridges the gap with different kinds of people in different places, video became the only way to do it. Whether it was learning how to Zoom for educational classes, or learning how to Zoom to do a buyer consultation or a listing presentation, learning how to show houses by FaceTime. You're trying to give comfort to buyers and comfort to sellers who themselves are in different places on this spectrum. So realtors accidentally got comfortable with video. Well, if you look at the last, I'd say 7 months, we've really seen a giant increase of realtors using video, especially in places like Instagram. We're seeing more people do reels. They're doing more fun videos. There's some little challenges that float around, like there's a whole challenge that got started on Clubhouse, the realtors doing dancing on Thursdays, and it's incredibly hilarious because it's so awkward. But when you learn how to be awkward on a video camera, you become entirely different in the eyes of your public. It's endearing to them when you're awkward and very, very imperfect.
Which goes back to what you said before. It's about you being real. Like, there you are, just showing your real self. And I remember when I first started doing video, I was like, I really look like that. And there was like, I really look like that. I guess I'm just going to roll with that and just be yourself.
Well, what your clients were seeing, right? That's the craziest part about this. We're so hard on ourselves, but people still hire us. And I remind these realtors too, that the only person who ever said that you're too old or fat or ugly or stupid was you. And we're so ugly to ourselves. I'm ugly in the way of behavior and words. And then we just let ourselves hide behind this imaginary problem that never even existed. So if you're on this podcast because you are listening to what Eric says and you are getting better at marketing, let me give you 2 tips on making video. The first one, never, ever, ever, ever go back and watch it again. You make it, you post it, you be done. I don't watch any of my stuff, because I too am my own biggest critic. I will say my hair was bad. My crow's feet were showing. My eyeshadow was creased. Oh my gosh, I should have reapplied the lipstick. What was I saying? Where did I stand? Look at my chins. I am so mean to myself. So don't watch it. The second tip is that once you've made 3 videos and posted them, you got this. You have to get yourself over that hurdle of, I can't. When you do it 3 times, you can no longer say that you can't, because you have. And the other thing you'll find out is that people are generally so loving. Like, it might just be your Aunt Susie, but she's going to comment and say, hey, oh my goodness, aren't you cute? Good job. And that's going to build you up enough to go then do something intriguing. Share the days on market for your zip code, share a new listing, share an interesting anecdote about the business, give people some insights. So that's what I've seen realtors doing better. They're really embracing video finally. What realtors do poorly? That's a much longer list, but I'll just keep it concise and say that if you're copying what everybody else is doing, then you should remember there's 1,521,000 realtors in the country. If you're doing what the herd is doing, it is very hard to be noticed. So instead, look at what everybody else is doing and spin it. You maybe go +1 or -3. Do a version that is different and tells us about you. So maybe you are that horse ranch person. Fantastic. You should do a video with your horse out at the paddock. And you can say, you know what? I turned my horse out at night at 7 o'clock in July, as your realtor, I turn myself out at 7 o'clock in July. So call me back tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. I'll be back up and at it. You could then tell people that as a professional, you have a life and a hobby, and you also have boundaries. That's a wonderful message to give to the public, that you're not going to be 24/7, but instead that you treat yourself like a professional, and you're doing it in a way that is relatable and it's real. And now they're probably going to like you and say, oh, I don't want to bother her. She's doing exactly what she should be doing. And that's a message that you cannot replicate, because it's you. And other people might try to be you, and that's fine. I'm flattered when somebody copies my ideas. In fact, y'all can go look at my Instagram channel and copy anything that you want, turn it into your version. All I'll say is tweak it, twist it, make it you. +1, +2, change something, and start thinking about other people's marketing as a foundational tool instead of just something to replicate. The other thing I will tell you realtors do poorly, Eric, if I can add one more thing.
Please.
Y'all have got to stop with the post that say under contract in 3 hours with 47 offers and we got 893% of ask. What are you doing? Whenever you make a post like that on your social, you just told the public they didn't really need you, as it turns out, because the market's so hot and so easy that anybody could do it. What are you doing? You could instead do a post that says, so excited for my sellers. They were successful because they did all the work for the last 4 months to get this house ready. I'm excited for them, which means you got to take the angle of your social posting and make it about somebody else. If you change that, that's a shift overall in not only what the public thinks about who realtors are, but it's actually a great explanation of who realtors are. So we can change the perception of the public, and it's not the job of your brokerage or your realtor association. It's agent by agent. We can change this narrative.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. I love that. You know what? They're the hero. They are the hero of this story. It's not
us. They did the work. I mean,
they did the work
with the pond in the driveway.
Yeah. Yeah. They did the work. And they also they're the ones that went through the emotional roller coaster. They're the ones that are experiencing all the change. Make them the hero. Stop the nonsense, right? Stop the nonsense. I love that. Okay, Leigh, last question, and we'll totally shift gears. I want to ask you this because you're so involved, right? You're so involved at NAR, so aware of issues and what's happening. Tell us, what are some things that we need to know about? Like, what should be on our radar? What are some challenges you see coming down the pike that us professional realtors need to be aware of, get ready for? Like, what do you see out there on the horizon?
Well, without spending 4 hours over every concern that I have, because I have many, the first thing I will say is that every realtor in every zip code needs to make sure that you are in contact and communication with your city officials, county officials, planning and zoning officials. Our local level is the most impactful on the people we serve. And that's where a lot of us have kept our eye off the ball. And I'll blame social media for that, Eric, because it's easy for all of us to get wrapped up in party politics in DC. And you feel like you know everything about the Bidens or everything about the Trumps, and you're very involved in that level. That's not going to have nearly the impact on your day-to-day real estate life and the life of your clients like your local county and city officials and planning and zoning people are going to have an impact. So your first rule, go hunt them all down, get all their cell phone numbers, and introduce yourself. I'm a local realtor. Let me know if I can be of any assistance to you. If you need real estate information, if you need some insight as to what's happening in the market, I'm your girl, I'm your guy. Start the communication. This is not somebody else's job, okay? I volunteer, but that doesn't mean that you don't volunteer. In fact, the more of us that are creating those communication bridges, the more likely we are to impact policy, because each one of us votes. And that class of elected official is very sensitive to voter numbers. And the local level officials, their elections move in a 5 to 10 vote swing all the time. So you could actually be the one person by calling 5 past clients who changes the outcome of an election. That's how important this is. So that's where I want you to start. And then what I want you to pay attention to are some of the burgeoning issues that are happening. And they're not sexy. They're not exciting. They're not in the mainstream media. And that's going to make some of you have this default position in your head that maybe it's not that important. No. Remember that the mainstream media is a money game. They make money on clicks and taps. Friends, if we're talking about the 1031, that ain't generating clicks and taps. Nobody's interested in that except for savvy real estate investors who happen to be primarily mom and pops. 80% of the public that uses a 1031 tax deferred exchange are your neighbors. They're not huge companies. They're not big multimillionaires. It's regular people trying to make sure they have a financially stable future. So you got to be aware of these topics. The best place to get information is realtorparty.realtor. That's where you'll get all of the national level topics, and it's updated regularly so you can be educated. Now, some of y'all are thinking, Leigh, you can stop anytime now. I hate politics. I hate policy. I feel you on that. You don't have that option. When you're in real estate, politics is your business. Here's the top issues happening in DC. The 1031 exchange is at risk. The Biden administration thinks that if they take it away, they'll suddenly have money. That's not true. What will happen if you take away the 1031 tax deferred exchange is that you will freeze a portion of the market. And a lot of your investors, they'll sit still. So it's not going to free up the money that the administration thinks, because let's just be honest, too many of the people in DC are economically illiterate. The other thing that is a front issued topic is the capital gains rate. It's currently, as you know, there's a short-term rate and a long-term rate. The short-term rate is at your income level tax, your income tax level. The long-term rate at 18%. What they're looking at eliminating is the long-term rate, which is where most people buy and sell real estate. So you're looking at, for some investors, and capital gains rate in excess of 40%. Again, this won't be great money for the government. This will be a frozen market where investors just say, screw it, I'll sit still. The alternate side is we may see people start to put the pedal to the metal and sell now while they can still take advantage of the good tax rules. And I'm seeing that in North Carolina. You may be seeing that already in parts of your market. I know California is seeing that big time as investor money flees that state. So that may look okay now because it adds some inventory to the market. But the bad part is they're not reinvesting it. And so the beauty of the 1031 and of our capital gain situation, it allows people to continue investing in the market and to continue owning real estate where they're possibly providing housing for their workforce neighbors. For example, my rental properties, I like to buy ones that are in a lower price point because I like to provide good, decent, clean housing for workforce. I like being an affordable housing provider. I can cash flow on that. I don't need to have schwanky fancy, but my tenants are happy and cared for. If you get rid of the 1031, I'm going to put my money somewhere else, because why would I give the government all of my money that I took the risk to earn? Because this is all risk and reward. So those are at high risk. The third thing that you're probably all aware of that currently we're fighting right now with lawsuits, the eviction moratorium. When this went into place at the beginning of COVID, sounded good on paper, it sounded kind. What we've created instead is a real problem that tenants are going to have a really hard time coming out of, and landlords are going to have a hard time coming out of. What should have happened is the eviction moratorium should have been allowed to people with a COVID hardship. Instead, the idiots in DC made it across the board, anybody, which means a lot of landlords had deadbeat tenants already that weren't going to pay, said, ha, 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 now I don't have to, and they're still in there. And then we have the unconstitutional overreach of the CDC that just happened here at the very beginning of August. We're fighting that because that violates the takings clause of the Constitution. It's an outright violation of property rights. And as realtors, even if you're listening to this and you are a massive proponent of tenants, I'm a proponent of tenants too. I love them. However, renting a property from somebody, that's a contract. Contracts have to be upheld. When we get to a place in a regulatory environment where contracts are no longer deemed to be valid or worth enforcing, we've got a real problem on our hands. And so the realtors are there to explain to the elected officials who mostly get it. So right now our efforts are on trying to get the bureaucratic agencies to understand what they've done doesn't make sense. It's not right. It's not fair in any way, shape, or form. And it's going to have a downstream effect on the number of available properties in the future. It's got to be stopped. And so that's what the realtors are working on. And the good part is we've been doing political advocacy work for 52 years. We have amazing relationships, and hopefully those relationships are going to bear fruit for our neighbors, because remember that the work we're doing, all these things I'm describing, many realtors will never use those themselves, but their clients will. And the community where they live needs to have active real estate investors who are neighbors, who pay property taxes, who have kids in the schools and go to the grocery store with you, because that's when we really take care of each other in our small local microeconomies. If we don't stay at the forefront of this, then you're going to have too much of our housing stock owned by institutional hedge funds and groups like BlackRock and Blackstone. And that's going to be a really nasty impact on the business over the long haul.
And everything you just said are reasons why I'm so proud to be a realtor. One of the many reasons why I'm so proud to be a realtor is because we're out there fighting for these issues, advocating for homeownership, for property owners. And so, Leigh, you make us all better. You make us all even more professional. I so appreciate that. Thank you for all that you do for all of us, for our industry. Thanks for everything that you shared today. You're amazing and awesome. If people want to find out more about you, and let me say something specific, there are probably people listening who may have an event coming up and they need a keynote speaker. You know who would be awesome? Is Leigh Brown as a keynote speaker. I've witnessed that firsthand. So maybe it's a keynote speaker, maybe it's coaching, training. Tell us how people can find you.
I've made it as efficient as possible, Eric. It's all at leighbrown.com. And if you can't spell Leigh, no, it's not Leigh like the jeans. It's Leigh, Leigh, but Brown, you should be able to spell if you graduated elementary school. But I've made that easy for you. It's leighbrown.com. I'm sure Eric will be nice enough to slide it into the show notes for the episode. But there you can find out information about real estate in North Carolina, coaching, training. There's tons of free resources. And so if you are a practicing realtor who is listening to this podcast or watching it, then go download some things that could make you stronger. There's tons of free resources out there. But let me tell you all a little secret. Almost all realtors that go to download free resources, let it sit in their downloads, let it sit on their desktop, and they do not implement. So I ask you, the one listening to me right now, be the one on Eric's podcast that implements, because that's what's the game changer. That's what made him a more successful speaker, by choosing to go implement the ideas he got at a public speaking course, as opposed to just following along with everybody else. Don't you be that person. We do have a lot of realtors out there, but we need great realtors, and your neighbors need you, and they need you to be the best version of yourself. So download and implement. Yes.
Download and implement. Do it. leighbrown.com, Leigh Brown.com. Leigh, thank you. You're the best. So appreciate it. Everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for engaging. Can't wait to see you on the next podcast. Until then, enjoy life on the leading edge.